Today I have 4 different pieces for this small fall crochet collection video that I think are all super cute and fit perfectly for the autumn season. So let's get right into it. I've been seeing stars everywhere, on tank tops, jeans, bags, hats, and I thought it would be cool to incorporate it into a little fall/downtown girl-esque themed sweater. The sweater was originally going to be fully brown, but after realizing that I didn't order enough brown yarn, I added these cream stripes to the design, which actually looked pretty cute. I also wanted to make a sweater that didn't have any ribbing like I would usually do, so I designed the template without it. I also gave myself another chance to perfect the art of crochet graphs and crochet sweaters. So now that I know how to do it, let's go ahead and create the sweater. Because I wanted a cropped sweater, I measured until where I wanted the length to stop, which was around the middle of my stomach. I then measured my shoulders, but just added as much width as I wanted to so that the sweater can be oversized. To get started, first create a slip knot and chain 70 with your main color. Either a chain of 70 or however many chains that will reach the width of the sweater you desire. After you chain 70, what you're going to do is double crochet into the next stitch of the chain. To double crochet, yarn over, insert the hook into the loop, yarn over again, and pull through. There should be 3 loops on your hook. Then yarn over and pull through 2, and then yarn over and pull through the last 2 loops. You're going to do this for the entire first row. At the end of the row, chain 2 and turn your work. For the second row, you're going to continue the pattern of adding 1 double crochet into each stitch. Once the second row is complete, grab your stitch markers and start marking where exactly you want the star to be located at. For me, I started the star on the 3rd row. I added a stitch marker to the 22nd stitch of the row and the 47th stitch of the row. I also added a stitch marker to the back to indicate which side is the wrong side of the graph. Right here is my back panel that I already completed, but I'm showing it to show where I'm going to start the star and where I'm going to end the star. The star will end on the 18th row of the front panel. Here is a photo of the star graph that I made. It'll also be linked below on my Pinterest if you want to download it for your own sweater or anything else you want to make. To get started with the star, first double crochet all the way down until you reach the first stitch marker. The stitch marker indicates where the graph starts and stops. Once you reach the stitch marker, begin to follow the graph from right to left, starting with the bottom row. For the first row, it says to do 3 double crochets with the brown color. So first do 1 double crochet into the stitch marker stitch and remove the marker and place it back into the loop above where it previously sat so you can always know where the row ends and starts. Then continue with the other 2 stitches. Now, the graph says to do 3 stitches with my cream color. To change colors, loop the cream color onto your hook with the tail in the back and twist the hook slightly as you insert your hook into the stitch. Then, yarn over again with the cream yarn that's attached to the ball of yarn and pull it through, making 3 loops on your hook. After that, drop the tail end of the yarn and yarn over with the yarn that's attached to the ball and pull through 2, then yarn over and pull through the last 2 loops. That's the method I use when changing colors for the graph. After the stitch is complete, finish the next 2 stitches as indicated on the graph. After, the graph says to do 14 stitches with the brown. So first, switch to the brown by cutting off a tail from the previous brown we were using earlier and using that to add the yarn onto the project. Then do 13 more rows after the initial switch stitch. You can pull the yarn to make it more secure. Use this method for the entire graph, always ending the graph at a stitch marker and finishing the rest of the sweater in the main color. Another way to do the graph is by creating small balls of yarn to keep them attached around the areas that they're needed. That way you don't have to weave in a billion ends later. I also like to weave in the ends of the graph as I go. The way I do it is by making each color cross like this so that there isn't any gaps in the graph. I then use my darning needle and weave it slowly into the loops, making sure that they don't go through the front. I then go through the loops 2 to 3 times before cutting off the yarn. Once you reach row 18, or where you finish the last row of the graph, chain 2 and turn your work. Then double crochet normally with your main color for 2 more rows. After that, fold your panel in half and add a stitch marker into the middle stitch. Add a stitch marker to the 5th stitch on both sides of the middle stitch marker. These indicate where you're going to decrease for the shoulders. To start with the shoulders, double crochet down to one of the stitch markers. The middle stitch doesn't really matter anymore, so you can take it out if you want. Once you reach the second to last stitch, you're going to add a decrease. To do this, yarn over, insert your hook into the second to last stitch, yarn over again, and pull through. Yarn over and pull through the first 2 loops on your hook. Instead of completing a normal double crochet, yarn over and insert your hook into the stitch marker stitch. Then, yarn over and pull through. Yarn over and pull through all 4 loops on your hook. That's a double crochet decrease. After, chain 2 and turn your work. For the back side, you're going to skip the first stitch and just work double crochets down for the rest of the row. This makes a slope on the inner side of the sweater. Only do the decreases on the inner side of the stitches. At the end of the row, chain 2 and repeat this for a total of 4 rows. So you just did 2 rows and now you have to do 2 more rows. You should end at the end of the sweater. After those rows are complete, chain 1, cut the yarn, and pull to secure. Repeat the decrease steps for the other side of the sweater's shoulder section. Now you just have to repeat this pattern for the back panel, but instead of making a star in the middle, every row is just basic double crochet stitches with the main color. To attach the front and back panels, align them with the right sides touching and then slip stitch the shoulder sections together. It's super easy. To do the arms, I first tried on the sweater and measured where the panels ended on my arms to where I wanted the sleeves to end near my hands. For me, this was 17 inches. For the design of the arms, I started with the cream color. Create a slip knot and chain 56 or however wide you want the arms to be. Make sure this width is able to fit the circumference of your arm. After creating the chain, double crochet into each stitch for 7 rows. At the end of the 7 rows, attach your main color by looping it onto the hook instead of creating a chain 2 with the cream color. Once the brown is attached, chain 1 with it and turn your work. The loop that was used to attach the brown counts as a chain. Begin working 7 rows with the brown color, making sure to weave in the old tails as you go so you don't have to do it later on. I did a total of 4 blocks of color changes. Each block is 7 rows long, which is 4 inches for each color block. At the end, chain 1, cut the yarn, and pull to secure. To attach the arms to the main body of the sweater, fold the arm in half widthwise and add a stitch marker into the middle stitch. Attach that same stitch marker into the space between where both the front and the back panels connect. Make sure the sweater is inside out. This is optional, but I like to add a bunch of stitch markers to both sides of the arms so that while I'm sewing, it can stay in place and be even on both sides of the sweater. To sew the arm onto the sweater, I take a darning needle and a long tail of the color of the first block and insert it into the first stitch of the arm and the first stitch of the panel. I then pull the darning needle through until there is a bit of a tail left. Then I just sew in back and forth. You can slip stitch it if you don't want to sew, but I just prefer sewing it. Once you reach the end, weave in your tail to secure the sewing job. To sew the arms so that they can be, arms, pull the sweater up so the panels can touch each other. Then add a stitch marker to the middle where the armpit is essentially. Then add a bunch of stitch markers up and down the sides to keep it in place. You can start sewing on either side, but I usually start at the bottom of the sweater and work my way up to the arm cuffs. Sew the exact same way you did for attaching the arms to the panels. At the end, weave in your tail, attach the second arm to the other side, and you're done. Okay, so here is the star sweater that we made. It is very flowy and soft because of the Paintbox yarn that I used, and I think double crochet was pretty good for this as well. This is the first time that I'm actually satisfied with a graph that I made. Like, I have a graph for a tote bag that I made and the Marceline sweater that I made in my previous video, and they made me sad, but this makes me happy. I'm really happy that I did do the striped sweater, the striped sleeves. It really fits well with the star and just the overall, it gives the sweater more personality rather than just it being all brown, but at the same time, if it is all brown, it's perfectly fine, just it's more simple, What is fall time without pumpkins? This was an absolute must, and I can't wait to decorate my apartment with them. To get started, create a slip knot and chain 21. After chaining 21, you're going to do 1 single crochet for 3 stitches. To single crochet, insert your hook into the stitch and pull the yarn through. There should be 2 loops on your hook. Yarn over again and pull through 2 loops. Do this for 2 more stitches. After, you're going to half double crochet for 15 stitches. To half double crochet, yarn over, insert your hook into the stitch, then yarn over and pull through. There should be 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. Do this for 14 more stitches. For the remaining 3 stitches, do 1 single crochet into each stitch. After you finish that first row, chain 1 and turn. For the second row, you're going to do the exact same thing, except it's going to be in the back loop only. Here is the front loop and here is the back loop. For the rest of the project, you're only working in the back loop. So do a single crochet for the first 3 stitches in the back loop. Half double crochet for 15 stitches in the back loop. And then single crochet again for the last 3 stitches in the back loop. You're going to repeat this for a total of 22 rows, so you have 20 more rows to do. You can do more rows if you want. This is just where I stopped. Once you're finished with the last row, slip stitch both ends of the pumpkin together. At the end, chain 1 and cut a long tail because you're going to use that to close the top of the pumpkin. Grab your darning needle and insert the tail into the needle. Then what you're going to do is work the needle back and forth in the top of the pumpkin gently until you reach where you started. It's the exact same method as creating a beanie. Once you reach where you first started, gently pull the tail. Doing this will close the large gap in the middle. For any gap you have left, you can sew it together. Once the top is secure, put your darning needle through the top of the pumpkin and pull it through the bottom gently. This will make the top pull flat like a pumpkin, which you'll do later on. If you made a long enough tail, you can use the same tail for the opposite side of the pumpkin, but I wasn't thinking, so I just cut a new long tail for the opposite side. I sewed back and forth around the top like we did earlier, but before pulling it close, it's time to add stuffing. You can use either cotton or yarn ends that you didn't throw out as filler. As you can see, I have a lot, so I don't think I need to buy any fillings anytime soon. You can fill it as much as you want, but just make sure you're able to close the gap. After it's filled and the gap is sewed shut, I pulled the darning needle through both ends and pull it tightly so the top can flatten like a pumpkin. Keeping it tight, I weaved in the end and did the same to the opposite side. To make the pumpkin stem, create a slip knot and chain 4 with a brown yarn. Then slip stitch into the first stitch of the chain and chain 2. In the middle of the chain is a gap. You're going to half double crochet into the gap 5 times. After 5 half double crochets, slip stitch to the first stitch and then just work half double crochets around until the stem is the length of your desire. I didn't keep count because it was a bit difficult for me to see with this dark yarn, but once it's at the perfect length, chain 1 and cut the yarn. Then stuff it with some of your filling and then use the tail to sew the top closed. To attach the stem to the pumpkin, pull the darning needle through the middle of the pumpkin and tightly weave it into the bottom so that the stem stays in place. And now your pumpkin is complete. This top was originally going to be a dress. I designed the dress with different sleeve colors mainly because I didn't have enough yarn, but they still came out pretty cute. The way it looked when turning it into a dress was weird, so I changed it into just being a cute top. This top is based off of the coquette aesthetic that has caught my attention. Sorry if I'm saying that wrong. I love the gentleness and the softness of the aesthetic, so I wanted to make a top that embodied that. To get started with the top, first measure where you want the top to start and stop at. For me, this is 7 to 8 inches. After, create a slip knot and chain 22 with the color you want your top area to be. After chaining 22, what you're gonna do is half double crochet for the entire row. To half double crochet, yarn over, insert your hook into the first stitch of the row. Then yarn over and pull the yarn through. You should have 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over again and pull through all 3 loops. That's a half double crochet. Do this for the entire row. At the end of the row, chain 1 and turn your work. You're going to repeat the previous row for 60 rows or until the panel wraps around your bust area with a few inches in between. That way, if you pull it, both sides reach each other. For me, who has a 32B bust, this was 60 rows. After you finish the rows, chain 1 and cut a long tail for sewing. Grab your darning needle and insert your yarn into the needle. What you're going to do now is grab both ends of the panel and fold them so that the right side fits in between the left side like this. Then pull them apart slightly so that there's a bit of a gap like this. Make sure the ends are evenly stacked together. Take your darning needle and sew through the ends back and forth to attach them together. After finishing the last stitch of the end, fold the gap sides together like this and sew them together as well. You only have to go through the gap sides, not the sides you already did previously. After they're attached, you can weave in your tail end and cut off. Pull the top inside out and try it on. Take the top off and attach yarn to the back of the bottom of the top. This can be any stitch you want. Ignore this purple section of the top. We'll get to that later. After the yarn is attached, add a stitch marker to that stitch and work half double crochets all the way until you reach the little gap section in the front of the top. Once you reach where the top starts to kind of pull up, you're going to chain 7. I started the chain at this little ribbed area, so I'm going to attach it to the same looking type of space on the other side by slip stitching. Once the little chain is attached, continue half double crocheting around until you reach where you started in the back where the stitch marker is. Slip stitch into the stitch where the marker is and chain 1 and turn your work. For the next 2 rows, do regular half double crochets down the entire row until you reach the stitch marker. At the stitch marker, slip stitch, chain 1, cut the yarn, and pull to secure. Now it's time to do the arms. First, put your top on. While the top is on, attach 1 stitch marker on each side where you'd want the arm straps to start. It's helpful to have a bra on since you can just copy where the straps start and end. Add stitch markers to the back as well. Once the stitch markers are attached, attach your yarn to one of the stitch marker stitches by inserting your hook and looping the yarn through the hook, pulling it through. Then chain 40 or whatever amount of chain is necessary to fit over your shoulder and to the back of the top. You don't want to add too many chains or it'll be too loose. If you didn't already, add a stitch marker to the stitch in the back of the top that is best for the chain to end at. After, take the top off and slip stitch the chain into the stitch marker stitch. After that, half double crochet around until you reach that stitch marker again. Once you reach the stitch marker, take it off and half double crochet into that stitch, then add the stitch marker into the new stitch. Where the stitch marker is now indicates the first stitch of every row, so there's no chaining or anything. For the next 3 rows, half double crochet around normally. At the end of the 4th row, add a half double crochet into the stitch marker space and replace the stitch marker. You can try the top on again to see how the arm is fitting so far. For the 5th row, you're going to increase in every other stitch. To do this, yarn over, insert your hook into the next stitch, yarn over, and pull through. Then insert the hook into the next stitch, yarn over, and pull through. Then yarn over and pull through all 4 loops on the hook. This is a decrease. For the next stitch, add 1 normal half double crochet, and then in the next stitch, decrease. Do this pattern of 1 normal half double crochet and then 1 decrease until you reach the stitch marker. At the end of the row, work a half double crochet into the stitch marker and work the 6th and 7th row with normal half double crochets into each stitch. For the 8th row, this is optional if you want a tighter fit for the arms. If you don't want to do this, then just work 1 row of regular half double crochets. But if your arm isn't as tight as you'd like it to be, for the 8th row, add a decrease into every other stitch for the strap section only. This will tighten the strap around your shoulder. You don't have to stress too much about this since we're going to be adding a bow into the back of the top that will tighten the straps later on, but this is an extra tightness if you'd like. For the next 34 rows, work regular half double crochets into every stitch. This will make the arms reach the middle of your arm. At this point, we're going to add increases to make the flowy sleeves. For the first row of increases, which is row 42, you're going to increase into every 6th stitch. So for 5 stitches, work 1 regular half double crochet. Once you reach the 6th stitch, you're going to add 2 half double crochets into that same stitch. After that, for 5 stitches, work 1 half double crochet into each. Then on the 6th again, work 2 half double crochets. The 2 crochet into 1 stitch is an increase. For row 43, you're going to add 1 normal half double crochet into every stitch of the row. Here's a little drawing of the rest of the increases. So for an example, row 44, you're going to add an increase into every 8th stitch, and then for row 45, you're going to do normal half double crochets. You're going to follow this pattern until you reach row 54, or after you finish a row of increasing into every 18th stitch. For rows 55 through 60, you're going to add one normal half double crochet into every stitch. You can make this longer if you want, but I wanted to stop it here. Once you reach the end of the arm, chain 1, cut the yarn, and pull to secure. To add a bow to the back of the sleeve, count up 4 stitches from the back of the top and add a stitch marker. Then count up 6 stitches and add a second stitch marker. There should be 5 stitches in between the stitch markers. After those stitches have been marked, insert your hook into one of the stitch marker stitches and attach your yarn. Slip stitch down to the second stitch marker and then chain 1 and turn your work. You're going to half double crochet normally into each stitch for a total of 50 rows. Once you finish 50 rows, you're going to start decreasing to make the little point end of the bow. To do this, half double crochet for row 51 until there is 2 stitches left. Then you're going to decrease into the last 2 stitches. After, chain 1 and turn your work. For the next row, decrease into the first 2 stitches and then half double crochet into the other stitches normally. Chain 1 and turn your work. For the next row, there should be 3 stitches left. Half double crochet into the first stitch and then decrease into the last 2 stitches. Then chain 1 and turn your work. On the last row, do 1 half double crochet and then chain 1, cut the yarn and pull to secure. Repeat all of these steps for the other arm and then your top will be complete. Another piece inspired by the coquette aesthetic is this beautiful bow. You can use the bow for anything and it's super easy to create. To create the bow, create a slip knot and then chain 2. Then you're going to half double crochet into 1 stitch. After, chain 1 and turn your work. On this next row, you're going to add 2 half double crochets into the stitch. This makes an increase. After, chain 1 and turn your work. You should have 3 stitches so far. For this row, add 2 half double crochets into the first stitch. Then add 1 regular half double crochet into the remaining 2 stitches. Chain 1 and turn. Half double crochet normally until the last stitch and then add 2 half double crochets into that last stitch. You're going to continue this pattern until you have 8 stitches in total, making sure the increases are all on one side. After that, the bow is pretty simple to make. All you have to do is half double crochet for as many rows as you want. I personally did 80 rows so it can be long enough to tie into a bow, but the more rows, the better. After the 80 rows, I began to decrease the same way I increased earlier. I first half double crocheted all the way down until there was 2 stitches remaining. Then I decreased into those 2 stitches. After, I chained 1 and turned my work. In the first 2 stitches of this row, I decreased into them and then did regular half double crochet for the rest of the row. I repeated this pattern of keeping the decreases at one side until there was only 2 stitches remaining. For the last 2 stitches, I added a half double crochet into the second stitch only and chained 1. I then cut the yarn and pulled to secure. Now the bow is complete. Okay, so this is the final look for the top, and this is the bow that I made in the tutorial, but I also made another one using the extra yarn from this, so I put that one in my hair as you can see, and yeah, I really like how this came out. In the tutorial, I kind of kept messing up with this top. So like there's parts where this bottom part isn't there even after we did the bottom part, and there's a completely different arm on the top before we get to the arms, but I figured everything out and it came out really cute and I just love it. I love how soft and gentle it looks, as I stated earlier, and the only thing is like it's kind of hard to tie this by yourself, so I would get somebody to help you with tying it, but I think I managed. I didn't ask for help doing this, but yeah, this is the back of it. This arm is actually more flowy than this arm, mainly due to the fact that when I added this arm, it was tighter than this one in the beginning. So that just, I think the flowiness of it just truly depends on the chain that you did in the beginning. I also realized that because it's kind of pointy at the ends, you could literally just put this on you could wear this as a tie. So basically this bow pattern can also be made into a tie, and this is so cute. I don't know how to tie ties, so I'm kind of looking in the mirror to see if I'm doing this right, but you get the feel that I'm going for, you know, you can tell. But yeah, this is a cute little tie, or you can have it as those little what are those neck scarves that people wear when they have like fancy outfits on, like in France or something. It looks like that, but yeah. But yeah, it's cute. I like it. This was also a free-handed tutorial also. Like when I was doing this tutorial, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna decrease here and we're gonna see how that works. And it worked, so yeah. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you make any of these pieces, I hope they come out beautifully, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!